Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, Simple Steps to Make Your Website Shine. Today, we will be having our webinar led by our UX team, Adam DeLu, who is our Senior UX Designer and Virtual Design Specialist, Genevieve Mount, who is our UX Writer and Content Designer, and your questions are going to be fielded and answered by the content team, which is myself, Desiree Johnson, and our content manager, Michelle Thomas. We are so excited to have you, and I'm going to kick it off to Adam and Genevieve to go ahead and get started. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Desiree and Michelle, for inviting us to speak today. Let's just hop right into it. Thank you also, everybody, for coming, taking the time out of your day to maybe learn a little bit more about the magical world of UX. So what is UX or UI? I sometimes have a hard time explaining what my job is to my friends and my family. So I like to use a house as a metaphor. So when you're thinking about building a house, UX is the number of rooms you have. Who's going to live there? Does the floor plan flow nicely? Is the electrical and plumbing functioning properly? So basically, the foundational needs that a house has, UX is going to cover. UI, or user interface, here we're talking about the color of paint that we want to paint the house. What kind of front door we're going to have, what roofing materials are we going to use, what does our house look like, how are we going to make our house kind of stand out from the rest. And you is the user. As a home buyer, the end user should be the main person designers are thinking about when they answer these questions. UX is all about making your website better for your users. So Genevieve and I, if you haven't heard, are opening up an ice cream shop. It's called Cows and Sweets. Genevieve, do you know how to make ice cream?
Oh man, I don't know. I hope I know how.
Yeah. Well, Josh actually has an ice cream maker right now, so we're gonna need to go get that from him before we start making ice cream flavors. But before we start making ice cream, I think we need to fix our website. Genevieve and I have purposely created a very bad user experience with our Cows and Sweets website to use as a teaching tool for everybody, to follow 6 simple steps on how you can easily make your website a lot better. So
yeah, I'll jump in with a quick intro to kind of the reasoning behind Adam and my business and kind of like our brand philosophy, just so that you're in line and you know what we were thinking. So we wanted to like add a little sweet and a little fun to the world. And because we don't want fake stuff in our desserts, we want to make ice cream with all natural ingredients, like, straight from the cow. So you'll kind of see throughout this how we work in that fun, sweet, and natural philosophy so that it really shines in our brand. And then one other quick thing before we start, you'll see we're going to break down this website piece by piece, and we're going to apply UX best practices to each of those pieces. What we're hoping is that you'll come away with this maybe with just 1 or 2 pieces that you can apply to your website, or maybe even just one part of one of those pieces. So yeah, let's break this down.
All right, what should we fix first?
Let's do naming. So let's name the website. And just a quick note on how this presentation will go. The first slide that you'll see, which is the one you see right now, we're going to show questions to ask yourself. And then you'll see the original website below those questions. And then on the second slide, you're going to see the UX best practices that we use to answer those questions and improve that section. And so then below that, you'll see the website again, but you'll see the changes we made. All right, so naming your website. The first question you want to ask yourself is, does the name of my website make sense? So if you look at what we have here, we've named our website Cows and Sweets. And while the imagery helps, the words alone might not make people think of ice cream. They might make people think of cows, like cows for eating, meats and sweets, or sweets made out of meats. So it's not super clear. Question 2, will your website name make sense to your search engines? This is really important for search engine optimization, or SEO. And search engines might struggle a little bit with this website name, especially since we don't have a tagline that has any keywords, which we'll talk about in the next slide. And then the third question, am I differentiating my brand with my website name? Now, the website name is fun, so that does match our brand, but it's not creating a big differentiator. So let's move on and see what we decided to name it. All right, homemade ice cream. Okay, so we use these UX best practices to settle on this name. Let's talk about that for a minute, because naming stuff is not easy. I actually had like, I don't know, over 15 ideas for this website name. And they really ranged from like a more creative to more straightforward. One thing you can think about, as I mentioned before, is if you have a tagline, that makes it a little easier to strike a really good balance, like a perfect mix of unique and creative and clear. But we don't have a tagline, so that kind of put a lot of pressure on the name to do everything. So homemade ice cream, that uses words our customers use and know. It'll be great for SEO. It really does highlight our big differentiator, which is a big part of our brand, you know, that natural ice cream idea. It's simple, which is sometimes just kind of nice. And then we also like that it could be shortened to just homemade and used that way. So that is naming your website, and let's move on to website navigation. Okay, when we're talking about navigation, what we mean is the words in that top bar, like where it says how to get your ice cream, here's where we are, here's what we have, here's a cow, so cute. So the questions we're asking ourselves here for navigation is, does this nav clearly guide my customers? So while you can read the words and kind of extrapolate what they mean, they're really not that specific or clear. And you want your navigation to be a really quick get. A note about the fourth nav, the here's a cow, that's pretty fun. And something like that could work in your navigation, as long as you've covered everything else you want in that space, as long as you've covered your customers' priorities, and as long as it's something that really goes with your brand. So for us, you know, I imagine that Adam in my ice cream store would probably have like a few of our cows roaming around, you know, in the back, just sort of happily munching on grass. And Adam and I would probably put like a cow cam up, and then just hook that up so our customers could, you know, watch our cows. We'd want to rename the nav item to something, you know, like meet the cows, and make sure that it fit in with the rest. But just a quick note that you can still have fun in here as long as you've covered off on all those other things.
I love the cow cam idea. Can't wait to implement it. Do you want me to talk about the background?
Yeah.
So when you're applying a navigation to your homepage and subsequent pages of your website, we want to make sure that you can read it over the background imagery. Oftentimes you'll see websites that will take that background image all the way to the top edge of their website. And if you pick a good image that has good color contrast with your navigation and your images don't change throughout the pages of your website, that's a little bit easier to maintain and less of a risk. But an easy solution, put a bar behind it, pick a color that's contrasting with your navigation. We picked this creamy color because it's kind of the color of milk or ice cream. And then that will make it super easy for your users to find where they want to go with your website. If your users can't figure out where they are going on your website isn't really working. All right, let's move on.
All right, so here you can see that we've changed the words in that nav bar, and this is starting to feel better already. So we're using 1 to 2 words for each navigation item. They're very clear and they're straightforward. And what we did here is we put ourselves like in our customers' shoes. We imagine, what do our customers want to do when they come to our website? They probably want to know about how to get the ice cream, so curbside and delivery. They want to know about our locations, where we are. They probably want a full list of flavors, and they might want to learn about us, but they also might not. So that's kind of why it's all the way to the right there. And of course, we could change about us to that cow cam later, which we probably will. So basically, we made our nav reflect the actions that our customers will want to take. Okay, so for that last number 4 best practice, that is talking about categories and subcategories. We're not going to cover that specifically today, but it is a really important way to organize your content. So I wanted to touch on that quickly. One way to figure out how to organize your content, even if you already have your website all set up, is to just map it all out. So you could, grab a big piece of paper, like analog style. You could get some index cards. Remember index cards? You could do like a digital spreadsheet where you name out all of your articles, your posts, your pages, your information, and then it works like a inverted funnel. So you see what subcategories those fit into, what categories those fit into. You kind of filter everything into the right place so your customers can find it.
Awesome, already looking much better. Let's talk about content.
All right, homepage content. This covers a lot. So in this slide, we're going to kind of focus on that top third of the page, and then we'll tackle the bottom third next. Okay, so a big thing for your homepage, it's actually something we already talked about a little with the website name. So you want your customers to land on your homepage and within like the first few seconds to know what your website's about. So if you look at some of the words there in that huge block of text, you might not be able to see, but it says things like, ice cream should be crafted without GMO sourced ingredients, synthetic constituents, chemicals. While that's all like scientifically true about our ice cream, it's not letting people get a really quick idea of what we're about. And it's also not really, that's not the way people talk about ice cream. So when you create a homepage that is quick for customers to understand, that is including the right words, the right images, and you want those to work together. You also want to ask yourself if you can read everything easily, and you want to make sure that you're answering the most important information that your customers want to know. So let's see how we can answer those questions. All right, that is starting to come together. So what we've changed here is that top part, we've taken out that whole block of text. And that wording is still a little hard to read. We're going to work on that, but it says, welcome to Homemade. Side effects may include dancing a jig, bare feet in the soft summer grass, and the occasional brain freeze. So basically, we chose words that were fun, sunny, that felt homemade, because that's part of our brand. And that welcome message is for our website launch. So it's working to get brand name recognition. And after a few weeks, we could switch that out and put some different messaging in there. So let's look at how we use these best practices to write in a way that reflected the words our customers use. And I want to make like a quick distinction here. This is not about dumbing things down for your customers. It's just about matching to the words that they use. So if you have a website that like sells a really technical product and your customers are really experienced with it, they use that technical terminology, then use that language. And if you have customers who are on a range, so from novice to more experienced, that's when it gets tricky, because you have to figure out how to strike a balance to help educate your novice customers and also support those who know exactly what's going on and what they want. So the number three, oh, sorry. Yes, number three here is just really make sure that you are customer first. So as you can see, we really decided to save that entire intro story for the About Us section because when you think of your homepage, you want to think about your first-time customers and your repeat customers. You want people to understand what your site is about and get a little sense of who you are, but in a way that's still somehow about them, like about your customer, and in a way that's not repetitive for all the customers who already know who you are and what you're about. At number four, we're gonna get more into images and colors and words supporting them throughout the presentation, but that's just another thing to keep in mind.
Awesome. Let's see what's next.
Sweet. So now we're looking at the bottom third of this page. But really these questions and best practices apply throughout. So we've solved the top half as far as it being easily skimmable and getting information quickly. But we really need to work on this bottom part for that. And we also want to make sure that it is accessible. So we still need to do some work, and let's see what happens when we go to the next slide. Cool. So you can see we've changed that flavors of the week section because we know that from talking to our customers, they often come to our website to learn what our flavors of the week are. So what we wanted to do is really highlight that. So we've got like the names of the flavors. We added really nice images that pop and that are enticing. And that way we're really leading with that information that our customers want to know. All right, so that first point there, it says make it skimmable. It talks about bullet points and front-loaded sentences. So we aren't showing specific examples of this, but the idea behind that is you always want to say the most important things first. So whether it's a sentence, headline, in headers throughout an article, or in bullets. So of course there will be exceptions, like if you're writing in-depth articles and things like that. But for your shorter hits, even for product descriptions, if you have an e-commerce site, part of making your content skimmable is really writing the most important words first. And I mean like the first 1 to 4 words of that bullet or sentence. And then alt text. So there's, this is number 3 on that slide. There is some stuff out on the internet about how you can sort of keyword stuff your alt text to boost your SEO, but that's not good UX practice. So people who have visual impairment use sight readers to understand what's on a web page. So you really want to describe the image so that you can help others understand and visualize what's there. So alt text for this could say, a young woman serves ice cream to a couple inside a shop. And the fact that you're still saying ice cream because that's what's on the image, but you're creating an idea of what that means. And the alt text can help search engines understand more about your site. So it does help in that way, but really the main reason is to help people who can't see the images. And then Adam, do you want to talk about number 4?
Sure. When you are designing your homepage, we need to take into account that a lot of our display sizes will cut off, a little bit higher or lower depending on what kind of window you're browsing from. So we want to make sure that we don't occupy this entire top part of your website with one thing. We want this content below. And I'm not sure if you guys can see my mouse kind of hovering over things. We want the content below to peak above what we call the fold. The fold is the bottom of your browser window. That way your users will know that there's more content below and that there's more stuff for them to look at below the fold. If you hint at that or gesture at it by putting it above the fold, your users will scroll and interact with all the stuff below on the page. Cool, and I think that does it for content. So here's a little in progress shot of what we've done. Here's our original website on the left, our in progress website on the right. You can see it's already getting much more simple, much more easy to navigate. Our messaging is better, our branding's better, and it's just overall looking a lot more friendly, but we still have a ways to go.
All right. Yes, calls to action. We are like a little over halfway through our presentation, so thanks for sticking with us. And like Adam said, we've made a lot of progress. We have some really exciting stuff coming up. So CTAs, or calls to action. So what we're talking about here is like that big blue button in the middle that says, go ahead and check us out. The one up top to the right that says take a dip. And then those two down there that say, here are our cows, Bessie and Bruce, and sign up for our newsletter. So here are the questions you want to ask yourself. When you look at this page, is it clear what the main action is? Well, not really. I mean, it's hard to visually know which is most important because there are just so many. And then when you read each button or each link, it's also not clear what will happen when you click on them. I mean, you know, take a dip, like what in the world will happen if I click on that? And then 3, Adam, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, here we're talking about accessibility standards, and what that means is there enough contrast between the background color of your button and the foreground, or just your link and your background of your website? If you don't have enough color contrast, or if you're using colors like red on top of green, colors that are the same tone, some colorblind users won't even see them. And if your font isn't big enough, people aren't going to be able to read it. So buttons, they're super important when you're thinking about this stuff, because that's how we get users to do what we want them to do. So if someone can't see your purchase button, or if your purchase button is put in a weird spot, or not big enough, or it doesn't have enough color contrast, you're not going to get a lot of conversion on your website, because people aren't going to be able to see it or use it. So we're going to hop over to the next one, where we have fixed our button crisis that we've created.
That was a crisis. So you can see that we've narrowed all those CTAs down to just one: order now. But that's hard, right? Because you most likely have customers coming to your site and you want them to do a lot of things. So one thing that can help you get down to one CTA is just remembering, if you have a really clear nav, people will find those other things that they want to do quickly and easily. We know that our customers come to our website to do 2 main things: to learn what the flavor of the week is, which we have solved, and to order ice cream. So we now have one CTA that's supporting that main thing our customers are coming to our website to do. It's clear, it's concise, it's readable. And you'll notice that the best practices here are really similar to the ones for navigation, just in that clarity and concise idea. And that is it for CTAs.
Awesome. I wonder what's next. Imagery. All right, I'm going to take this one. So this imagery is problematic for several reasons. It's pixelated. So if you don't have a high quality image, it's probably going to reflect on your product, and just kind of your attention to detail. So we want to make sure we pick images that aren't pixelated. We want to pick images that are simple, so we can put copy over them. This copy is obviously really hard to read because the font is atrocious, but it could be any font and you still wouldn't be able to read it over this picture because this picture is busy. Also, let's kind of choose images that have a nice color palette that go with our brand. So let's see what we can do to fix this image. So we've swapped it out with that image that you guys saw on the cover when you were probably wondering, why in the world do we have ice cream on the cover of this presentation? So we picked a high quality image that's just ice cream. It's what our company is. We got rid of that cheesy stock images of two elderly people kind of laughing at ice cream. We've picked an image that has colors that kind of support our logo and our overall feel. And we've also added that waffle texture up behind the header. When designing your website, always think about what little details can you add that will kind of accentuate and add value to or visual interest to your website without becoming distracting. So here we're seeing kind of a pattern happening with this waffle texture in the image and the waffle texture up above, and already it's just so much easier and nicer to look at. So that's imagery. Next, we're going to talk about fonts. Fonts are super important. Things you want to ask yourself when you're searching for fonts. Is my font readable over imagery? This font, you know, it looks kind of like made of ribbons. It's like a 1990s wedding parlor. And it's time, I think, to divorce this font. Are we using too many fonts or too many sizes of fonts? My rule of thumb is don't ever use more than 2 fonts. When you're pairing fonts, pair something that's a little more decorative, like a serif with a sans serif. What you want to go for is contrast with your fonts. You don't want to pick 2 fonts that look too close to each other because then it just looks like a mistake. You want to make sure that there is enough contrast between your font color and your background. I think it's pretty clear here that that is still pretty hard to read. So we're going to fix that. Are my fonts too big or too small? Rule of thumb for font sizing: if you're designing for a headline font, don't go too big unless you're like screaming at your users. Then go all caps, giant font by all means. Or if you're using font as like a textural element or a graphic element in your design, then by all means use giant font. I'm personally a fan of big bold lettering, but when it comes to headlines and subheads and buttons, you kind of want to keep it reined in a little bit. For body copy, web fonts, you should probably stick around 14, 16 point. Definitely don't go smaller than 14. 16 is standard. And then I just wanted to talk about a little bit about font personality. This is super important because when you can't verbally speak to your users, picking a font that kind of matches the tone and voice of your brand or your company or your website is a really good way to kind of emotionally connect to your users. This font, obviously, it feels a little bit, I don't know, it's bad, first of all, but it just doesn't match kind of the homemade aspect of what we're doing. It feels a little bit outdated. It's hard to read and just could be better. So let's go ahead and fix it. All right, so we've chosen this font. It is bold, it's geometric, it's simple, it's easy to read, it's friendly, it's got everything we'd want our font to do for this website. If you guys have a hard time ever finding fonts, a good resource is Google Fonts. And if you go to Google Fonts and just kind of use the popular or most recent filter, any of those fonts that pop up will be kind of Google approved and accessible for your users. So what's next? We need to change the color, I think, so we can get that font legible, or we might be changing orientation. All right. So what we've done is we've just moved that headline and subhead and button to the left to work well with our imagery. Using your negative space in your imagery as a guide for font placement is always great. If you have the foreshadowing to think about it, pick images or take images in advance that work well with your page layout. So when I was looking for images, I just saw that big open space on the left And I'm like, that is screaming for copy to go there. So that's why I kind of chose this one. We still can't read it though. So use colors that contrast. I've said this like 6 times already today. Use colors that contrast with your background imagery. That blue that you guys were looking at before was kind of the same tone as that pink. So, I mean, most of us have pretty good vision, but if we were colorblind or didn't, that headline before would not even show up on this page. So we want to be kind to all of our users and make sure that everyone's included in this experience. So make sure you've got good contrast and accessibility standards when you're picking colors. And then we just went in and changed the font color and the button color. That button is just pops off the page now. People know exactly where to go. We're guiding our users right there. It's the darkest element on the page. And it's only CTA, so people kind of clear where they're gonna go. So this is our website. Tidied up. Isn't it beautiful? I think I'm super proud of it. I'm much more excited to launch our new ice cream business, Genevieve, with this website in contrast to our last web, where we started. So
I'm excited too.
Awesome, great job. And then we just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of how we approach these changes and how you can on your own website. So Genevieve, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so what we just showed you was a big rebrand. If we were going to do that and our current website, or the one you saw at first, had tons of repeat customers, we would want to let them know what was going to happen before just launching a new website. If we really didn't have any repeat customers, or if we were just launching that for the first time, we really wouldn't need to worry about this. But if we did have a lot of repeat customers, we'd want to use emails, social media posts, blog posts, webinar, like a banner on your website. Guess we could do a webinar, just to tell customers what to expect, maybe when that change will happen, make it exciting, and you could also tell them why you're making changes. And then, really depending on your product and how complex it is, or if there are security things going on or what have you, you might want to provide a link to a Q&A, have some kind of ready-made content in there, and also include a way for customers to ask questions and provide feedback. And I think we have just 1 or 2 more slides, and then we're going to wrap up. So testing, before we wrap up, this is important. So now that we have optimized our site for our customers, Adam and I can start doing some small tests just to make sure everything is dialed in. This number 1 is really important. Test one thing at a time. That means, so just change copy on one CTA button, or move that CTA button, a little bit around on the page, or swap out an image, or change your headline. Just don't do even 2 things at the same time, because if you do and you see some reactions from your customers, you'll never actually know which of those 2 changes is working or possibly not working. So that leads us into number 2 here. Small tests make it easy to shift back. So if you don't see a good response, you can quickly shift back. If you do see a good response, you know exactly why you're seeing it. Number 3 is make sure you have metrics before you change something. So that is your control. If you know about how many visitors you have a day, and that's a pretty even amount, then you can compare that with the tests that you're making. And number 4 is just kind of having an overall, keeping an eye on your website in an overall way as far as your performance and your loading speed and things like that throughout your testing. So for example, let's say you want to swap out an image and you grab a beautiful image, but you kind of forget to compress it and resize it, and you upload it to your website, or maybe you upload a video, and it's actually taking your website so long to load that your customers are bailing. before they even see it. So that change you made might have been the right change, but you're not really going to get the right, you're going to get results that are for the wrong reason. So kind of just keeping a full view of what's happening while you're doing this testing is important. So those are just some best practices around small tests for your website.
Cool, thanks Genevieve for talking about testing. That is super important. All right, as just kind of a wrap up, we wanted to show you guys where we started, where we landed, just to kind of reiterate that you can follow these simple steps that are very prescriptive and make your website so much better. And not saying, you know, a lot of your websites are going to look like this one on the left because we purposely made it, you know, very bad. But even if you make a couple of these changes, you're going to see a positive impact on your user experience moving forward. Cool, and that, I think that does it for us. I think we'll head into questions if Desiree and Michelle have any.
Yes, thank you so much, Adam and Genevieve. That was excellent. And we have a lot of really great questions. But before we start real quick, just wanted to remind everybody, we will be sending out a copy of this webinar along with a copy of the slide deck and an FAQ blog with a lot of these really great questions and answers at the end of the week, as well as emails about future webinars and more information going forward. So just, we have some really awesome questions that y'all asked. We're gonna go ahead and start with questions. So first, how do the flavors of the week, the way they were shown, motivate people to want to scroll down?
Okay, Genevieve, you want me to take this one?
Sure.
I think any content you put there will make people want to scroll down just because they know that there's content there. I think flavors of the week as a headline is an intriguing thing for people. I think the first thing we all do when we go to an ice cream shop is see what flavors they have. And then we chose to put those kind of like colorful circular graphic elements to represent the ice cream flavors. So I think photography, placement, and our wording is what's going to motivate people to scroll down the page. Would you agree with that, Genevieve?
Yeah, and I would even say as well that as long as visually it doesn't look like your website is done, people will want to scroll down. So it's interesting because sometimes I jump on like a you know, a website and I'm looking through, let's say like climbing shoes, and if they don't have a really good way to show me there are more to look at, I often think that that's all that they have in their selection. So that's kind of what we mean is as long as that content is showing that there's more, and you know, if people land on our site and they're looking for those flavors, they'll probably automatically scroll.
Cool.
Thank y'all. As a best practice, is there a max width for a responsive website?
So for a responsive website, the numbers change every day because our screens get bigger every day, and we have these giant TVs too now that people are using as their desktops. So 1200 is a good ratio for desktop. Tablet, you'll go down to, and don't quote me on this. We'll put the actual responsive sizes in our blog that we'll post after this to follow up to your question. A tablet's around 650 or something, and then your mobile sizes, your smaller iPhones will be 320, and then they go up to like, you know, your phablets and stuff in the 400, 500 range. So sorry, I don't have those numbers on the top of my head. Our programs now are great, like XD and Illustrator and Sketch, where you kind of just choose your screen and it'll kind of set that all up for you. So it's easier to not have to pay attention to those specific sizes now. But love that question. We didn't talk about responsiveness because there's just you could do a whole nother webinar about responsiveness. it's so important to make sure that your website works well on a mobile device, because more now than ever, people are using their phones more than their desktops to surf the web.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we will include that on the FAQ blog. How much, we got this one a lot. How much text should be put on a page in order to represent a brand or business?
Go for it, G.
That's such a good question, and I think it's something that all of us struggle with, right? Because if there were a magic number, we would all feel a lot better about it. I think I mean, yeah, not to take the easy way out, but of course it depends on your customers, on what they need to know when they land on your website. But I guess I would say it can be helpful to write everything you think needs to be on there, and then just try to keep cutting and cutting it down, because that main thing that I talked about was remembering that you will have repeat customers, hopefully, and you really want the content to speak to them as well, and to not be super repetitive. So it will depend on what kind of product you have, but I always try to go for shorter is better, especially just visually. It looks better. It's more engaging when you have these, some big, beautiful imagery and slightly less copy. And then also just keep in mind, people today, of course, again, this depends on your customers, but they often don't want to read a lot of text. It is great to give them the option to read if they want to. So in your nav, you can, you can have those options to go in and dive deeper about your brand and about your products. But really, as a rule of thumb, I would say shorter is better, especially on your home page. If you're talking about articles and blogs and stuff like that, then you can really test into that and see sort of how much hunger your customers have for long content and short content. Because I think there's a lot of different people out there, and they want to consume all across that spectrum.
Thank you, Jen. What is the best way to put your to put the main menu on this? Is sticky okay? What is the best way to put the main menu? Is using sticky or not?
Yeah, sticky navs are okay. Some people, so for those of you who don't know what a sticky nav is, a sticky nav is when your menu at the top of your page follows you as you scroll. So all the content will go behind it as you travel down the page. We use sticky navs at Bluehost sometimes for sign-up cards, for different things, and they are very, very successful. We actually just redid the blog, our Bluehost blog. We took away that sticky nav that we had before, and our signups dropped by like 70%. So there is a argument that sticky navs are good. You're allowing your navigation to follow your users so they can go anywhere they want quickly without having to scroll the way up to the top of the page. Another thing you can do if you don't want to use a sticky nav is you can add jump links throughout your page, which will jump you down the page, jump you to the top of the page. That kind of alleviates a little bit of scrolling that a user has to do, but yeah, I'm 50-50 on sticky navs. They're distracting aesthetically, but they are functional. So it's kind of a double-edged sword with sticky navs.
Thank you, Adam. How are you finding out things from your customers about what they want? Are they in person? You getting that information from surveys, or would it be analytics?
Yeah, so we actually, our UX team and our whole product organization conducts weekly interviews with our customers. So we will find customers and we conduct half-hour interviews. I mean, right now there's probably 15 a week. So we talk to them in person. We do have some CSAT stuff set up on our website. So how was this experience? Rate it, just to get kind of like that minuscule data from how our website is performing. We are actively monitoring the analytics of our website all the time. We have a big support team that's fielding calls all day long, answering customers' questions. We talk with them to see what kind of customer hurdles they're facing. They field problems about our product to us so we can know about them and fix them. We've done extensive user persona research to define who our users are by interviewing 30 people over the course of a month, really digging in to get to know who our users are and what their needs are. I am super proud of how invested our team is in our users and getting to know more about them. So those are the ways.
Yeah, and I'll also jump in and add, we do some user research as well. Even when we're working on a project, we will put together a prototype and then get it in front of people, whether they are our customers or potential customers, and we'll just walk them through it. We'll ask, what would you expect? What do you expect when you read these words? We'll kind of watch them and see if they click on the buttons that we want them to. We'll kind of just gauge how they're reacting, and we'll take that information and just revise and throw it out there again and see what happens. So that's you don't want to over rotate on those tests, but if you have some ideas for your website that you want to test, you can grab a few of your friends and put some stuff in front of them and just see what they do. You can just watch people, or and then when they do something weird, you can ask them, wow, that's like crazy. Why did you click over there? Or what did you expect to happen when when you clicked on that nav item? So yeah, we also kind of get stuff in front of people in an iterative way to try to learn as we go.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Genevieve, is that just like asking your friends, just saying, does this make sense? Because sometimes when we're the ones creating it and we're the ones managing it, we tend to like overlook things because it's in front of us all the time. So just getting a fresh perspective, I think, is a super helpful way to see if what you've created is working or not.
Yeah, testing is huge, and it's actually a really fun part of UX. It's so fun to get outside of your head and see if what you thought is what other people also think, and you often get some surprising results, which is cool. So
Thank you guys both. Is there any software that would help in mapping out my website?
Yes, there is software. If you're talking about kind of making like a flow chart about your website, there's a software. It's online. It's called Miro. It's a great tool. It's super easy to use. It kind of acts as like a sticky board or sticky note board. And you can have multiple people in it at once collaborating, moving things around. We use it a lot for when we're doing workshops, design workshops with our teams. It's a really great collaborative tool. Genevieve, do you know the name of the other one that's like Miro? We swapped it out.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of that when you were talking, and I can't remember it, but we will add it in the Q&A that goes out. And I also will say Miro is really easy to use. I was excited to use it because it made me feel really smart, like I was a designer. So I I would say it's just a nice way to put all your thoughts down digitally.
Yeah, and that just is going for digital tools. Sometimes just getting in a room and sticking papers on the walls is also really successful. Taking photographs of that and then digitizing it in whatever program you feel comfortable in using. That's also a good option. The reason I do like Miro is that you have those connective arrows between boards, and you can really map out like a pretty dynamic flow chart of your website. Yeah, and you can do it.
And you can like zoom in and zoom out and put as much content on there as as you want. So you could do like pull screenshots in and all kinds of things.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. When we discuss images, can you break down what does pixelated mean? And why do we want to avoid that on a website?
Great question. So pixelated means you can see the pixels in the image, and that is in reference to image resolution. So the image that you're looking at on the screen right now, so web resolution is 72 dpi. So if you're editing your photos or if you're downloading photos, web resolution is 72 dpi. That resolution is good for fast loading. Now that we have such big screens that are so high res, 72 dpi is not really cutting it anymore. So I usually export at 150 dpi. dpi means dots per inch. If you're going to print a photo, then you need to go, print resolution is 300 dpi. So that basically is just telling you how many little boxes of color are they cramming into an inch worth of photograph. So obviously the smaller the number, the more of those boxes you're going to see. If you noticed on that image that we showed of the couple eating ice cream, it looked grainy. Basically the image is grainy or pixelated, or it was blurry. So that's just in reference to picking images that are high quality. My recommendation is always to choose 150 dpi. Download the high res ones for like marketing materials that you might have, and then output them at a lower resolution for web. Does that answer that? Yes.
Sounds good to me. Thank you so much. So when we discuss,
So,
oh, sorry, you were saying?
oh no, I'm just like, I guess I can ask the human that asked that question if I answered that. But thank you.
In terms of UX, how much of it do you need to consider in terms of desktop versus mobile? Is there a preference for one over the other, or should you be creating it with both in mind?
That is also a great question. So with analytics, you can actually see how many of your users are viewing your website on mobile or desktop. Now more than ever, mobile is much more common because we're checking our emails on our phones, and a lot of those marketing emails are we're opening them on our phones, so they're directing us to a mobile experience. For instance, I just helped a friend out with a food delivery website, and I was looking at the analytics for her website, and 89% of the people that bought food from her website came from a mobile device, and only 11% were desktop. So I think it depends on kind of what you're selling. Like if you're building a website online, people are going to be using desktop more because it's hard to build a website on your phone. But we have this thing that's kind of an industry standard now that we call mobile first. So think about when you're designing for a desktop and you're scaling that design down to mobile. It's much harder to go from a bigger design to a smaller design than it is to go from a mobile size to a desktop. So if you design mobile first, with mobile first in mind, you're gonna have a lot easier time scaling your website for other screen sizes. also, this is a big subject we could talk about forever, but I think that's the most concise answer I could get. Yeah.
Thank you. And one more question on images. Does pixelated mean the same thing as digitized? Are they similar? Are they dissimilar?
No. So digitized, I think, is referencing when you take a physical photo, like from film, and you scan it into your computer and you digitize it. So you turn it into an electronic copy of what was previously a physical photograph. When you digitize old photographs, if you wanted to use like a vintage photo or something, when you scan them in, they're going to scan in at a resolution that's appropriate for use. Since photographs are printed with ink, they're not a digital format, you can blow up an old photograph as big as you want. It will get blurry, obviously, at bigger sizes, but you can digitize a film photo and use it for web, and it won't be pixelated because you've exported it at a high enough resolution. I hope that made sense.
Crystal clear. In regards to slideshows, so if I'm a person that has a slideshow in the main image area and the image changes, let's say every few seconds and links to different posts, is that good or bad in your opinion? And does it slow down my site?
So we call slideshows carousels. So carousels or slideshows are the same thing. You'll get a lot of kind of differing opinions on carousels. They will slow down your site. You're adding complexity. You're adding more image load on your website. Personally, and Genevieve, feel free to chime in here, they tend to be distracting. So if you're using one, maybe set your timer to like 15 seconds. So it's not just rapidly distracting your users, so they actually have time to digest that content that they're looking at. And if you're using a slider or carousel, make sure that like you're not adding too much copy to each one, because you're just asking a lot of the user there. Yeah, I think we're moving in a direction that's kind of anti-carousel, but they add kind of a visual interest to your website. I don't think they're horrible. I use them sometimes. It's good. It's good if you want to kind of give an array of what you're offering on your website without taking up too much real estate, because it's swapping out in the same spot. Genevieve, do you have anything to add about carousels or slideshows?
I think what you said is really great. I would just reiterate, like, not a lot of copy so that people aren't having to, they aren't feeling like they just started that little subhead that you wrote and now you're already on to the next. So just really keeping it simple, and then try to prioritize and not have, 6, 7, 8 of those coming through.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Like 3.
Have just about 2 questions left in regards to the webinar, because we are almost at time. Do people read left to right on a screen when there are multiple items, or right to left?
I
think that's a cultural thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, it'll depend on language for sure, and where in the world you're coming from. You can look up. They have what they call like an F pattern. I think Adam, jump in if you want. It's kind of the hot spots of where people tend to look on a screen, and I think that makes the letter F. So I'm sure that it depends on what else you have going on the screen and things like that.
Yeah, I think typically in like Western cultures are going to read from left to right. So if that's your audience, I would say yes. That's how we read books. That's how we skim things. But yeah.
Thank y'all. And the last question: how would the main section work on a phone? If there's text overlaying or overlapping a graphic, will it disappear on a phone?
Yeah, you can do several things. You can set your responsiveness so your image kind of moves over, and you can kind of just test it to see if your copy is going to work over it. You can find an image that you can swap out when mobile hits. You can delete the image. Yeah, it's kind of tricky to do that. Thankfully, our phones now are pretty big. So, you know, if you're looking at this image right now on the screen, if that were the home page, what would I do on mobile? I'd probably crop the ice cream cone in half. So only the left side is showing, so it's kind of bleeding off the page. And then you could, you know, put your headline to the left of it, and then just decrease your font size so it fits. You can also, a lot of times they'll do like an overlay, like an opacity overlay. So you're still seeing that there's an image there behind it, but you'll have like a color filter over it, or a color layer, or a gray layer. So your type goes right over your image, but you're still kind of adding enough contrast over the entire image that you can still read your headlines. So those are a couple ways you can go about responsive size for hero imagery.
Well, thank you both so much for all of the time in presenting the webinar as well as answering these awesome questions. We have a lot of more awesome questions that we will definitely address in the FAQ blog. Just a reminder for everybody, we will be sending out a copy of the recorded webinar, the slide deck, and a copy of the FAQ blog for you to have at the end of the week. So please be looking out in your emails for that. Thank you so much for a wonderful time today with y'all this happy Wednesday. Enjoy your day, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you, Genevieve and Adam.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yeah.